Hey all, hello and welcome, Tony Bing here. For this beginner's guide video we will be looking at our X-Men, and the particular one will be Shadowcat, or Kitty Pryde as she's also known. Now she will be beginner's guide number 38 that I've actually completed, so 8 more to do for console. Then I'll have a bit of a break and actually play the game for a while, and then I'll start working on the PC ones. Now in this video, if you're new, what I cover are the attributes, traits and resource of heroes. I'll show off a few of their costumes, check out their signature and ultimate, and then I finish up the video with some skills and gameplay. Now I will mention that in the last day or so I've actually just added little hyperlinks within the description that allow you to jump to any of the sections I've just mentioned for all of my beginner's guides videos. So if there's any you were maybe watching and you stopped halfway through and you want to check a section, feel free to jump back and check them out again. But for this video here, let's look at the attributes, traits and resource first. We start off here then looking at the offensive trait, and that is All Guns Training. So with this you have 15% critical hit damage. Her archetype is Strategist, meaning the primary attributes are Fighting and Intelligence, so you want to go for either one of them because they are both great. Fighting offering crit rating multiplier, Intelligence offering the crit damage rating. For her defensive trait we have Intangible, so this provides you with 279 health and hit. Her archetype is Nimble, and that will give you a bonus multiplier to both deflect and dodge, and as primarily a melee hero she also has the 8% damage reduction there as well. Now the next part we look at is the resource, and this is Lockheed. You can see him flying about in the moment. So with this, your faithful companion and pet Lockheed will remain at your side at all times, spewing fireballs at enemy and obeying your commands. So you can see that it will actually do damage on his own, but through skills you can actually get him to do particular moves as well. Now on top of that, your primary resource as a result of having Lockheed is known as Lockheed Energy. This will constantly regenerate, and you can actually use certain skills to speed up the regeneration of it if you want to have a build where you fire off the Lockheed skills more often. Now on the subject of builds, she actually has two very distinct playstyles, one that's focused around Lockheed and more ranged dots, and the second one which is more the melee and ninja side of things. We'll check both of them out at the end of the video anyway. For now, the next section we will have a look at a few of her costumes. The first costume we look at is her default, and that's a modern, so this is just really the standard X-Men look with the yellow and the black, but it is really quite a nice looking costume. We then have Excalibur, which is an old style costume. Originally I wasn't a huge fan of it, but it's actually grown on me. I like the fact it's quite quirky. Finishing up we have the awesome Age of Apocalypse, and the reason this is so great, when you use an attack that would normally be a katana on her other builds, she actually has metal claws in both hands. This looks great, and when we do the melee skills preview we'll actually do it with this costume to show them off. But next up in the video we'll have a look at her signature and ultimate. For the signature we have a pretty simple skill. This is called Phased Out, so she phases under the ground and then jumps up and hits the enemy. It will do 4 separate hits. Through talents we can actually increase this so it does up to 6 hits, and you are invulnerable for 2.1 seconds while you're actually casting this. Now one thing I'll mention as well is you can actually move about while you're casting it, so just bear that in mind. If you use it on a bunch of trash and you take one of them out, you can just move around the screen to take the remaining trash out. But next up we'll have a look at her ultimate skill. For the ultimate we have a skill called Soul Sword, so with this you'll actually borrow Magic Sword. Now she'll swipe it forward and do the initial large 4 damage hits on it. It's then followed up with a buff. Now this will increase your base damage by 100%, increase your dodge chance by 50%, you will regenerate 1400 health and 30 Lockheed energy when you hit, and on top of that they recently modified it so that if you use your dash through normal enemies you'll actually instantly defeat them as well. So that aspect is quite nice on it, but overall it's a bit of a strange ultimate because it's not a very iconic skill, but damage wise, buff wise, it does what it's supposed to do. Now next up we will look at the melee side of things and we'll show off the Age of Apocalypse costume. The first skill we look at here for this run through of the Shocker term was Disciplined Strike. Now through talents we've actually slightly modified this, and that every third hit you actually phase through the enemy and do a critical hit. So from a flavour point of view it's pretty great to see Kitty being able to do that. Now next skill we have, this is a phasing skill and called Watch Your Step. So you leap forward under the ground and you actually pull enemies down. Now you will make them vulnerable, but with regular enemies there is a random chance that they won't actually come back up after you've pulled them under the ground. As we're running through this level, keep an eye out for that. It does happen now and again. Now you also be invulnerable while you're dipping down under the ground for this skill, so overall it's really pretty great. We then have Phasing Samurai. Now whilst Watch Your Step pulled enemies down, this one actually pushes them all the way up. So you've got the damage packet, you're invulnerable while you're casting it, and on top of this it actually buffs your melee power damage by 15% as well. Following on from that we have more single target skills. Now the first one we look at, this is Heartbreaker. You've got the initial damage packet, it always critically hits, it's got a low cooldown of 4 seconds, and you actually stun the enemy for 1 second as well. The next skill we look at is another single target one, so this one is Logan style, which is a nod to the sparring that Kitty and Logan will do on occasion. We just seen the Watch Their Step there, just take one of the enemies out, so I'll just quickly mention that. But for the skill we were looking at, Logan style, you've got the initial damage packet and it actually works as an execute as well with a low cooldown of 4 seconds. We then have a move that I used just there, which is Shadowcat's Pirouette. This can be pretty great for taking out trash. You spin round, you do damage and you weaken the enemy, and the duration of the weaken lasts for 8 seconds there. Now this particular skill through talents we can actually modify that as well. We can make it hit harder, it gains a cooldown but it gains 2 charges, so the option is there. Personally I prefer to keep it as a trash clearing skill, but the option's there. Let's run through or even phase through the rest of this terminal. So we could see Watch Your Step there, it took out a good chunk of the normal mobs straight away. And then we follow up with the Phasing Samurai, so I like the idea of pulling them down and then smashing them all the way back up again. There we go, we can see that mob just didn't appear after I pulled them down there, but let's fire off all the skills in unison here on Shocker. That's a signature there, and as mentioned earlier in the video you can see that you can move about whilst you're actually using it. You also see those awesome claws that I mentioned earlier on as well in this costume. I really do like this costume a lot. There we go, that's him down. So what we'll do for the next gameplay preview is we'll show off the Lockheed side of things. This is really ranged dots, so let's check them out. So for the skill preview we will actually showcase the Excalibur costume and we'll run through the Kingpin's warehouse. The first skill we look at is actually a melee one that you can use alongside Lockheed, so this is called Buddy System, and with this yourself and Lockheed will actually do attacks in tandem, so the animation is really quite nice. It will cost Lockheed energy, so if you find you're struggling in that regard you may wish to use Disciplined Strike instead, which actually restores Lockheed energy. Now the next skill we have, this is Shadow and Flame. This is another melee one where you work in tandem with Lockheed. So you've got the initial damage packet that you do yourself, Lockheed will then do damage, and on top of this you gain a buff for 10 seconds of 10% to Lockheed powers and the previous skill we just looked at, which was the Buddy System. Next up we have Line of Fire. So this is a large ranged area attack, so you've got a large ball of flame that shoots forward. This will always deal a critical hit, and if you want through talents you can actually modify this so that it always deals a brutal hit and it spends 100% of your actual energy there, which means it can be really hard hitting. The next skill we look at is Dragon's Breath. So this one is similar to the last skill, but this time when the big ball of flame shoots forward it actually leaves a burning dot on the floor, and this will slow the enemy and their attack and movement speed. That's for 4 seconds, and the actual duration of the dot is 8 seconds. Now next up we have Spitballs. This is a spammable Spitfire attack, and it's one that I'm playing around with the idea of actually trying a full range kitty build and using this as the main spender. I'm not sure how I could maintain it or how much damage it would do, but I like the idea and I'm going to try that out at some point. You have the initial damage packet and it will actually do dot damage as well, so if you want to just fire it off on a group of trash mobs and then run past them, the chances are the actual dot will take them out. Now the final skill we'll look at here, it's another Lockheed one. This is turn up the heat. So Lockheed perches on your arm and you essentially use them as almost a portable flamethrower. So you hold this down as long as you can maintain it, and the damage on it will work as a dot, and it's 2 strikes per second. Here we go, we'll work our way towards Dr. Octopus and we'll show off some of our phasing dashes. You can see that she's phasing through the scenery there, which is pretty great. Let's fire off all these skills now. It does feel slightly strange using the buddy system when the rest of the skills in Lockheed are ranged, so just do bear that in mind if you want to maybe try out the Spitballs idea. There we go, trying that there. And there we go, that's another beginner's guide done. So that's 30 we've finished now, we're almost there. Next up I will be checking out She-Hulk in the next few days, so keep an eye out for that, and thanks once again for tuning in and I'll see you all soon.